All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wine Access Experience on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Vanessa Conlin, head of wine for Wine Access. I'm so excited to have Maya Dalla Valle joining us tonight. Maya is the director of Dalla Valle and also a second generation proprietor. So I have a ton of questions for her. Can't wait to chat. Like her to answer, please enter it, and we'll answer as many questions as we can over the next 30 minutes. But this has been a great way to stay connected. I know we're virtual. I wish we were sharing a glass together, Maya. But at least virtue of the internet, we can still talk about wine. We can talk about Napa or anything that comes to mind, and still be part of this great community that is wine. So super excited to have you. So I'm going to give people just a minute to join us if they're logging on at home. And in the meantime, I happen to have the 2016 Colina, which is I think the wine that comes from the younger vines on your property.
So it's a red blend coming from the younger vines on our property. It has all the same, we're seeing the same care and attention that the Cab and the Maya does. It just comes down to a matter of blend. So this is a blend that we make that is a little bit easier drinking in its youth and a little bit more fruit forward. And we like to say it's like a placeholder wine that you can drink while you wait for the other two wines to age.
Got it. Well, it's absolutely delicious. We've absolutely loved working with that at Wine Access, and I'm going to enjoy this glass over the next half hour, but maybe two actually. But I think who's joined in the last 2 minutes, it's shelter in place. I think it's anyway. Anyone who's joined in the last 2 minutes, thank you for joining us from home. I'm Vanessa Conlin, head of wine for Wine Access. Welcome to the Wine Access Facebook experience. And I'm here with Maya Dalla Valle, director and second generation proprietor of Dalla Valle. So Maya, what is it like? I'm holding a bottle here right now of Dalla Valle. What is it like growing up with your name on a bottle?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know life any other way because right after the year after I was born, my parents created the wine Maya. So as soon as I learned how to read, when I saw all the boxes and wooden cases and the wines with my name on it, I said, Mom, Dad, these are all my wines. You can't sell them. And they made it very clear from that moment on that we named the wine after you and we love you, but these are not your wines and they're, it's completely separate. So I think I always grew up with that separation in mind. But now being involved in the winery and having a hand in making the wines, it definitely bears a big sense of responsibility into the quality and output and the craft that we do every year.
So when you're out and about, let's say with, wine collectors and they realize who you are, do they ever seem starstruck?
Yeah, it's really, I don't know, that part is very strange for me because for me, I'm just, I'm just a person and having that separation in my mind early on, I never think of myself. I mean, yeah, the wine shines and it's special and something beautiful. But for me, I never thought of myself as any kind of celebrity. So it's a very bizarre encounter for me still to this day.
So this is leading to a question, but I have a story I want to tell first, which is that I moved to Napa from New York City in 2010, and I was a buyer in New York for a couple wine retailers and a wine bar, but I got out to Napa and nobody knew who I was, and I was trying to find a job I really wanted to work for a winery. I eventually ended up working with Fritz Hatton at Arietta, but I got out here and I was just like, trying to get acclimated, and I took a job in the tasting room at Mondavi, and that's where I met Maya. That's where I met you. I was also working in the tasting room already at Robert Mondavi Winery, and I think that's so refreshing that you kind of had to earn your stripes, which is my question is, this is your family business. I mean, easily, in the same situation, some people just kind of, because it's your last name, you get kind of ushered into a position of authority. But it sounds like your mom really made you like go out and earn your way back into the business. So can you tell us what you've done?
Yes. So I'm very grateful to my mother for kind of leading me on this path, because originally I had no interest in being in the wine business. And it wasn't until I left Napa Valley that I realized I actually really love Napa Valley and started thinking about long term and the future. And I'm an only child, so if I didn't take on the responsibility of taking over the property, then it would eventually be sold, and that would be the end of that. So, and I came back in 2009. I worked my first harvest at Nyers Vineyards and absolutely loved it. And I told my mom I wanted to go into winemaking and become the winemaker at Dalla Valle. And she said, that's great. And like even the intern that we hire, they don't come without an enology degree. So if you want to work here, you have to earn it. Like nothing is given to you. You have to work hard and earn it in order to really appreciate it. And so that kind of led me on this path of learning and traveling and working. And I went back to Mondavi in 2010 to work in the tasting room, to have experience in hospitality, which I learned very quickly is not my forte. So it was good to know early on. And then I went back into production at Nyers, and then I applied to graduate school and went to Cornell for viticulture and enology for my master's. And then I spent a couple years working and traveling abroad. So I worked at Ornellaia Maceto in 2013. And then I went to Bodega Rolland in Argentina in 2014. And then I was able to spend 3 years in Bordeaux, where I got a second master's degree in vineyard and winery management. And I was really fortunate. I was able to work at places like Chateau Petrus, Chateau Latour, and then Canon La Gaffalière. And then finally, my mom said, okay, maybe you're overqualified now. I wanted to come back in 2017.
Can you tell me some story about one of the chateaux in Bordeaux where they were experimenting with like hand picking the berries off of the stems?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was at Chateau Latour. So they had an experiment trial where we would hand destem everything. So there was like 10 of us sitting around a table and cutting off berry by berry into like a small fermentation vat to see what it would be like to ferment whole entire berries without breaking the skin. They liked it, but not enough to convert everything to it. I think economically it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it sounds like it could either be like really tiresome or like very zen.
Yeah, it was zen for about like the first hour, and then afterwards it starts to become a little bit agitating.
Got it. So, okay, so you have this like immense breadth of knowledge now and experience. So, you come back, your mom says, great, like now you're even overqualified. But now that you're there, your director, I know that Andy Erickson is still winemaker. But so how does your role and his role connect?
So basically, I mean, Andy obviously has his own project, and then he works with a few other wineries. So it's impossible for him to be at the winery day to day. So we work very closely together, along with our cellar master, into managing the day-to-day operations and what's going on. And he stops by when he can. During the growing season, we do our vineyard walk weekly with our team, blending sessions, checking on the wines, etc. And then during the harvest period, he's coming every day, and we're tasting wines together and walking the vineyard together. So along with my mom. So everything is very much a team effort. There's no, single person that makes a decision.
Got it. And that actually leads to one of my other questions, because, talking about your mom, like, what do you think, what is it like sort of working with your mother? how is the family dynamic different, you think, then for a winery, that's not a family business?
Oh yeah, I think it's completely different in the way, I mean, that you both have skin in the game. You're both equally passionate about what you're doing because it's our property. I mean, it's my parents' property, and now my mom and I are working together. And I think it's just, you don't have that formal business barrier where you have like your professional relationship with your boss or your team. And it's not like have dinner every night together or like, go on vacation together. So, and those are oftentimes, in those casual moments where we really like can come up with some great ideas or have some deep conversations about the wine or what's happening in the vineyard. So I think it's very special to be able to have a family business and to work in tandem.
Yeah. So what is it, do you think, about your property that's so special?
Oh, well, there's a lot of things. I mean, for me, obviously, there's a huge sentimental value to this property, which led me on my path to coming back, because it's a property that my parents purchased together, started together, built together, and then my father passed away in 1995, and it's something my mother has continued on from then on. And so there's a lot of, it's a lot of memories for me. I grew up on that property. I know those vineyards really well, and it has a lot of meaning for me too. So I bear a lot of responsibility, and for me, I feel like it's really something that it's my responsibility to take care of for my lifetime, as long as I'm around. I think also, if you look at us, I mean, from a technical aspect, we've been working with a geologist, Brenna Quigley, who's been great. And I actually just had a chat with her yesterday, and we were talking about things geologically that are very unique about our site. And first of all this time we thought we had andesitic rock. So we have a volcanic soils, very iron-rich, red, rocky soils. And it's basically a formation of a landslide that came down from Pritchard Hill is behind us at the top. We came down from Pritchard Hill up to where we are on this little bench, and then going down to the valley floor where you have Red and Screaming Eagle and Bacchus. But where we are, it's very interesting because you have this core stone volcanics, which essentially means that from the bedrock with this basalt rock that we thought was originally andesitic has broken apart over time from whether it be water, microbes going through from the vines. And so we have these big boulders that come up, in addition to having these small fractures of rock. So we have quite a bit of variation in our soils just within our own, 20-acre vineyard. And so within that, you can find little pockets that excel for Cab Franc. We have more, a little bit heavier clay section. That's a northeast aspect, is where some of our best Cab Franc is grown. And then we have, more southwestern facing slope, where Maya's vineyard is, and more clay loam soil. So, and we just have all these little pieces geologically that come together on this little bench that I think just comes through in these really beautiful, rich wines. But also, I think what's really notable about our wines year to year is the tannin profile. You have big tannins, but they're always very polished, very smooth. Especially in the 16 right now, they're drinking beautifully. They're very seamless wines. So for me, those are things that really make us unique. And that on top of being, owners who are really involved. My mom lives on the property. We are walking the vineyards once a week. We're always checking, attention to detail. Our vineyard manager lives on site. He is always constantly being very vigilant about every operation in the vineyard, and it's just both the human aspect and the geologic aspect all coming together.
Got it. No, and speaking of the property, we have a question from home actually. from Emily, who wants to know, how has the journey been converting to biodynamic winemaking? What are the best parts and what are the most difficult aspects?
Yeah. So we've been organic in the vineyard since 2007. So my mom made that decision after replanting our entire vineyard between the periods of 99 and 2007. And already that we saw a big change in the health and overall quality of the vineyard and growth. And so we just made the decision to convert to biodynamic farming last year. And I think the really big aha moment for my mom and then myself was for me when I was working at Chateau Latour in 2015, and they were working already in biodynamics and organics. And then my mom, when my mom came to visit me in 2016, we did a trip to Burgundy, and just seeing all these top producers all farming biodynamically, I think then she finally, got on board. Like, all right, because I had been pushing for it in the background for some years, and then finally she gave the okay to make the jump. So I really think, we're in a Mediterranean climate. We don't see rain from June essentially until September, October. So already to farm organically was easy in a way. And then biodynamics is just putting you in the vineyard, one more time per month and just being a little more vigilant and aware of what's happening. And what I really love about biodynamics is the thought of having, you don't just look at the vines and see what they're doing. You look at the soil, you look at what's around you, and you really try to build this sustainable ecosystem that, well, in an ideal world, self-sustain itself, so you don't have to intervene as much, and you can, you won't have a devastating virus that just comes through because you've been using, only like one clonal material, or if you're using spraying fungicides, mildew becomes resistant and takes over. So those are the parts I really, really appreciate about biodynamic farming. I don't know. I don't think we haven't encountered a difficult aspect. Maybe the philosophical part of it for our team has been the hardest part to grasp because, there is a lot of I would say like mythical parts about it, that you need to understand about the cosmos and energy and forces, and that's been, I think, a more challenging part for our team to understand, but definitely are open-minded to learning. So I think that's half about it.
Yeah. Another question from home is, do you ever differ from your mother in terms of opinions on winemaking? I'm paraphrasing the question, but essentially, how do you have conflict with your mother ever about winemaking decisions? And then my part to this question, how do you handle that?
Actually, I can't say that we've really had any big disagreements about winemaking. My mom has left like a pretty open avenue for me to be able to experiment and try new things. And as long as I can back it up for why I want to do it, not just because I think it would be cool. She's been really supportive through everything. So yeah, I'm lucky in that way. I really don't think, I'm trying to think of any conflicts we have about winemaking, but we pretty much agree.
So I have a question to ask. So, there are certain wineries in Napa that either the trade or consumers or both, they like to refer to as cult, right? And Dalla Valle is definitely in that camp. So I'm curious, what do you think about that, about the word cult applying to your winery?
Well, my mom always laughs about it because she says the first time she heard it was from Jim Lobby from Wine Spectator when he called the teller that. And she said, that sounds really scary. Like, I don't want to be a part of a cult. But of course, then it's taken popularity and they become known in this realm. But I think long term, I think that's going to I don't know if it'll die out completely, but I already feel like it has less meaning than it did 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think moving forward, what should be more emphasized in Napa Valley is more about the vineyards, really. Where, you know, what vineyard are you sourcing from? What are the characteristics that it brings from it? Those should be the things that are emphasized, not so much who's making the wine or, you know, what the label is. So I hope we become more known for that than being, you know, this cult wine.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of, you know, the vineyards and things that are important in Napa Valley, we don't have a classification system, let's say like Burgundy, you know. Do you think that we should?
It's funny. So we export one of our wines. We export Maya globally through the Place de Bordeaux, through the Negociants. And the last time I met with them, they mentioned that. So, you know, it'd be so much easier for international consumers if you just made a classification system like, oh, we can make it for you. I say, yeah, that'll go great. You know, Ranch Negociants classifying American vineyards. I think,
right.
yeah. Total take to that.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I think everyone will be totally on board with that. You won't have any backlash. So that made me laugh hearing that. But yeah, I mean, as the world becomes more globalized, although after the pandemic, we'll see. I think it's a good way to help consumers understand, you know, quality of the vineyard. But then the big debate becomes, you know, what is quality and what is considered, you know, a top growth in some people's eyes versus others. I think it'd be really challenging to make a completely unbiased classification in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, Vanessa.
Yeah. Do you think then also, you know, because I mean, there's no other way to say it, but I mean, you have quite a bit of notoriety about your winery, and you know, consumers know it, the trade knows it. Do you think that you feel and sort of an extra layer of expectation or pressure every year going to harvest because of that?
Not going in. I mean, yeah, I feel like there's a constant pressure to, you know, not cut corners and every day put out your best work and be very vigilant in everything you do. Yeah, I think that's been a big vision of my mom since the beginning, is always making top wines, even if it means sacrificing, you know, revenue or part years. So for example, there was 2 vintages which we didn't make Maya because we had replanted the vineyard and it was too young and we just didn't feel like the quality was there. So she made a 2003 and bottled 100 cases, or no, less than 100, very few cases, and then no 2004. So, and we made a total of 400 cases of wine that year. So I think it's difficult. It's not an easy decision to make, but I think that way we can show our, you know, customers and clients that we really are committed to making top quality wine and we won't sacrifice anything for quality. That always comes first.
Yeah. So we have a question from home from Lewis, who has a question about élevage. I think something that would be interesting. He's asking about, you know, oak versus steel, and also about clay. And says, I heard you experimented with amphora.
Yes. So as you probably know and seen on our label, there is an amphora. And we actually it's modeled after Phoenician amphora. And we have 3 of those in our house, or my mom's house rather, that my dad found scuba diving, which was his previous life before the wine business, in the Mediterranean. So he would always joke, you know, all my money came from the sea and now I put all my money into a sea of grapes. So that, you know, naturally now having, you know, when I came back, I said, well, why don't we play around with amphora? We have it on the logo and if it doesn't work, at least it'll make a really nice decoration, I suppose. But luckily, it worked. We're pretty happy with the results. So we started with 2018, two 320-liter amphoras, which is about a barrel and a half, and I filled one with Cabernet Sauvignon and one at Cabernet Franc. And it's very, very interesting. I wouldn't say that we would ever convert everything to amphora just because we like what the oak brings. You know, oak is a tool that can really enhance wines if you use it properly and pair it with, you know, the right toast with the right wines. Yeah, the amphora adds definitely a very interesting component, particularly in the texture. The tannin texture becomes very, very pure and very, very mineral as well. But stainless steel, yeah, I mean, with Cabernet Sauvignon, I think it needs air, and same with the Cabernet Franc. It just needs a little bit of air to it. And with stainless steel, obviously, you have zero air exchange happening, and it just basically freezes it in time. So definitely continue with the amphora, but I don't foresee ever using stainless steel.
Got it. So going back to kind of, you know, your earning your stripes, I want to say, or your, you know, what you did before you came back and to Dalla Valle, working in Italy, you know, Ornellaia, Macedo, working in Bordeaux, Petrus, and Latour. Like, is there any one thing or a couple of things you can think of specifically that you feel like you learned from each of those regions that you've brought back and have applied to your winemaking in Napa Valley?
Yes, definitely. Working in Tuscany and working at Ornellaia was my first international experience and first experience working, I would say, like at a larger scale winery. They have, you know, about 110 hectares of grapes, so it's a fairly large scale operation. And so just really seeing high-end winemaking on a larger scale, and which is totally different from Napa Valley, where you have this perception like if you're a large winery, you can't possibly make good wine. And then I went to, you know, Ornellaia, and then I went to Left Bank Bordeaux, where it's, you know, size considerably larger than most, if not all, high-end wineries here. So that was very eye-opening to see that potential of what you can do on a larger scale at maintaining a high quality level. So obviously requires a lot of organization, because there's only so much you can do in a day and see. And I also learned to appreciate incorporating data, whether it be looking at phenolics or malic acids and things like that. And so now that's something I brought back here, not to make a decision on when to pick or how to ferment the wines, but it's just an interesting point of reference to see, you know, okay, what was this block at this time 2 years ago, phenol tannin wise? How much tannin did it have? What was the color at? So you start to really learn patterns between different growing seasons and what it does to your vineyard, how it affects the grape quality. So that was really what I took away from Ornellaia and Macedo. Working in Bordeaux, they also work a lot in technical aspects in terms of laboratory work. Petrus, I mean, for me, that was really a dream experience because it was a comparable size to what we are. It's farming at the highest level. It's, you know, the attention to detail is massive. And then you go into the cellar and it's very straightforward. So for me, that was it was a good affirmation to what we do at home, because we tend to put a lot of work and effort into the vineyard and being, you know, extra exigent in the vineyard, and then what we do in the cellar is fairly straightforward. So that was a nice affirmation to see that done, you know, at one of the top producers in the world. So
yeah. And I guess to kind of flip that question around then, was there anything when you were there where you're like, wow, they could really learn a lot from Napa if they just did this thing that we do all the time?
I mean, yeah, I would say irrigation for one, with the way climate change is going, they could definitely have that if they have that capability. I mean, it's just, to me, yes, I understand. The argument for them is that it's a manipulation of terroir. At the same time, it's like, do you want to lose your whole entire crop for the sake of saying like this is what the vintage gave us and have no wine to speak of? Or do you want to have, use technology and use the tools in a, precise way? It's not like we just dump water on. We're very precise in the way that we utilize our irrigation and monitor it and try to use the most precise amount of water possible as needed for each plant. I think that's definitely something that Bordeaux in particular could use, and probably a lot of producers would like to use, especially the way, summer is getting hotter, drier, and without any kind of rainfall, it's very difficult to sustain a full crop.
Yeah. So another very technical question from home is, what are you drinking tonight?
So I am drinking a 2003 Chateau Aigris. So this is one of the properties of Stefan Nyberg, who I worked for in 2016. So it's his property in Castillon. It's a really beautiful, beautiful spot, and I think the wines there are fabulous. So that's what I'm drinking tonight.
Well, the 16 Colina is absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to pour another splash, but thank you so much for being with us. It's so great to still be able to connect, even though we're not actually face to face. At least we have and we have wine, so that we can, stay part of this community that's so beautiful, which is the wine community, and keep having these conversations. And so, last question from me, but when we were in the tasting room, working in the tasting room together at Mondavi, I feel like we used to get in trouble for like playing our own music. But I remember specifically you introduced me to the band The National for the first time.
Oh my God, really? I don't even.
Yes. which I'm when I'm maybe in a dark place, I'm a big fan of. But so what are you listening to these days, and what's your harvest soundtrack?
Oh, well, last harvest we played a lot of reggae. We played a lot of reggae, a lot of Yellowman in particular. I feel like it's such a stressful time. Sometimes it's nice to like put out like a really mellow vibe.
Yeah.
And then, I think, I guess these past couple of weeks in particular, I've been listening to a lot of John Prine just because he just passed away. So kind of reflecting back on that. Probably not the most, cheerful music, but I still enjoy it in any case.
Gotcha. Well, it's great to see you. Thanks again for joining us, and everyone watching at home. Thank you so much for being part of the Facebook, the Wine Access Facebook experience. We're so happy that we can connect with you here. Remember to write in your questions even later. We're happy to answer them. And Maya, cheers to you. Thanks again so much.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in person on the other side. Okay.